Up until now, I've made all of my YouTube videos using nothing but this right here, which is an iPhone 13 Pro. And don't get me wrong, it's always done everything that I needed it to do, such as making this video that you're watching right now. But I felt like I wasn't a real YouTuber until I actually got a real camera. And granted, this is nothing special, but after a little bit of research, I found that this did everything that I needed it to do perfectly. It's the Sony ZV-1F. It shoots video in 4K, which is perfect for making content in 2025. And it's nice and compact as well, so I can take it on the go everywhere I need to, and it doesn't take up much space. But as well as recording videos, I'm also going to be using this thing as a webcam, and that's another reason why the Sony ZV-1F was the perfect choice. But there's a couple of things we're going to need for this. So we've got the camera itself, and we've got that hooked up on the boom arm, ready to be streaming. But there's a couple of things down here that we've got that we need. For recording video, we do need a memory card because I do not have the correct type. And this one needs to be a UHS-2 U3. So it needs to be this specific type. So we've got one of these right here, and it's a 256 gigabyte one as well. So that's going to be plenty for what I need it for. Now for streaming, we're also going to need a HDMI to mini HDMI or micro HDMI cable. And also we need a dummy battery. Let's take a look. You can get all of these products off of Amazon. I did get them shipped out the very next day as I needed them pretty quickly for this video. So first of all, we'll just take a look at the dummy battery. Now this is absolutely essential because when I got the camera and started live streaming with it, I thought that I could keep it alive using the USB-C cable that it came with, but actually that was not true. Even if your camera is charging, if you are using it as a streaming webcam, the battery will slowly still go down and eventually just run out of juice altogether, which is why we need this power supply and dummy battery to feed it constant power while we're using it as a webcam. I already know how to set all this up, so I don't need the user manual or anything like that, so we'll get the box out of the way. Even though this is the Sony ZV-1F, this is the same process for the ZV-1 as well, if that's the camera that you do have, or if that's the camera you're planning to buy. We also need this cable as well, so we'll get this opened up and take a look. So although this looks pretty fancy, it's just a standard HDMI cable, but it's got a micro HDMI on the other end for connecting it to the camera, and then on the other end, just a standard full-size HDMI. Now, the reason we've got to go with a HDMI cable is because I don't really feel comfortable using the USB-C cable because that will be providing power to a dummy battery. There will also be being provided power from its own power supply. I don't really want two power sources coming into the camera. Potentially that might make it overheat or cause further damage. So instead, we're going to output the video through HDMI, and that's also going to give us higher resolution, so a better quality image. But additionally, on top of all of this, to connect it to a PC, you are also going to need a capture card. Now, luckily for my console streaming, I do have a 4K 120Hz capture card already in my PC to use if I need it. But if you don't already have a capture card, then you can go ahead and pick up one of these cheap little things. This will only capture in 1080p, and the picture isn't the best, but it's less than $10 and it will do the job. You could also spend a little bit of extra money and get something like the Elgato Camlink, which will provide a higher resolution and a better quality image, but really any capture card will do. So the setup is pretty simple. This acts as a battery and goes inside the camera, and then this just needs to be hooked up to a power supply. I'm going to get all this wired up, and then I'll show you the finished product. So we've got the dummy battery hooked up here. As you can see, the camera is working, and then the cable's coming out here. Unfortunately, we can't close the door, but I'm not too worried about that as the battery is still secure. It's not going to fall out because it's still got like its own locking mechanism in place. And as you can see, it's showing as a full charged battery, even though the battery is not actually a real battery. It's just being fed power. So that's step one complete. We've also got the memory card in there, and we can record 5 hours of 4K footage with that. So I can't really see me using anywhere near that, but just in case, it's always nice to have a bit of extra storage. Now let's get hooked up with the HDMI cable and see what kind of quality we get. So it's very simple. Just connect the HDMI cable to the side of the camera, and then the other end just goes into the capture card. That is literally everything we need to do. Super simple. And the beauty about this setup is that I can still record locally on the camera. So if I want to record on the camera and on my PC using OBS at the same time, I can do. I can't really think of any reason why I would need to, but still, pretty great option. And additionally, with how simple this setup is, this also gives us a completely clean HDMI output. We don't need to change any settings or anything like that. just plug and play, and we'll get a super clean image straight out of the box. So now we'll just take a look at the different qualities that we'll get. So I'm using my 4K capture card at the moment, so I'll show you the full quality that this camera is capable of. And then after, we'll take a look at this cheap 1080p capture card, and we'll take a look at and see what you can get for about $10 or less. All right, so this is the finished product. Basically, this is how it's going to look on my stream. This room is actually pretty dark. I have the Elgato key light Air just above the camera there, as you can tell with the light shining on my hand. That is it, but the rest of the room is actually really dark, and this camera is so much better than any webcam that I've used in low light conditions. I know that this image you're looking at probably doesn't actually look that good because of the low lighting. I could definitely make this a lot better, but if you are working with a very low light environment, then I think that this is more than respectable. This is going to be perfectly fine for doing a little bit of commentary or just talking on my live stream. And over time, as I grow, I'll probably try to put more effort into making things a little bit better. But for now, this is a huge step up compared to what I had before. I had a webcam that even when it was working, which was only like 50% of the time, it was subpar anyway in terms of quality. I would never dream of doing any full screen captures like I'm doing right now with this one, simply because it looked so awful when it was blown up as a full picture. When it was kind of like a very small square in the bottom corner of the screen, I could get away with it. And that was supposed to be a 4K webcam as well, and is highly rated by lots of other streamers. But this is a huge step up. I'm super happy with this. The camera was very reasonably priced. Granted, it was very similar money on the secondhand market. I probably could have got something like a DSLR that did a little bit more, interchangeable lenses and things like that, but I really didn't need it at the end of the day. And until I do, I probably won't look at investing into anything like that. But yeah, this is the quality, and I'm super happy with it. This is actually 4K, but you are looking at a 1080p image. So I'm only recording in 1080p right now, but I'm capturing a 4K image. This is literally just plugging it in. So I'm going to make some adjustments and trying to make things look a little bit more appealing. But this is at least what the raw footage looks like before any filters or color adjustments or anything like that has been made. But what I will do now is I'll leave all the settings alone. And what I'll do is I'll just swap capture cards. So I'm going to go from my 4K Ava Media capture card to the cheap HD $5 whatever AliExpress capture card. And I'll let you take a look at the difference on that one. Okay, and we're back. So we've actually only swapped capture cards here. The light is exactly the same in all the room. Nothing else has changed. I'm still wearing the same clothes and everything. Literally, the camera's in the same place. I've not touched anything other than unplugged the HDMI, swapped the capture card, and plugged it back in. And this is what you're looking at. And apart from maybe 1 or 2 frame rate issues, it still looks pretty good. And it probably will kick the ass of any webcam out there. So even using a $5 AliExpress capture card, and granted, again, this is 1080p, so I'm capturing a 1080p image and recording in 1080p, whereas before I was capturing a 4K image but recording in 1080p still. And yeah, there's a little bit of extra noise and a couple other things as well that I'm noticing. But really, as a webcam, if that's all you're going to use it for, I'd still be pretty happy with this. And there's definitely a couple of things you can do about that noisiness of the video going on. There's definitely some improvements that could be made. Again, just to the lighting of my environment. Like I said, the curtains are closed. It's very, very dark in here. I'm almost struggling to see some things around me, especially things in the corners of the room. But the image still does look quite bright. But yeah, I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to get the best I can out of this setup. All in all, I think everything cost me something like $550. And for just a webcam, that's a lot of money. To say you can get one of the highest end webcams on the market right now, like the Elgato Facecam Pro Mark II or whatever it's called, or even the Razer Kiyo, for example, which offer exceptional quality for a webcam. And even those aren't as expensive as this setup right here. But obviously, I'm going to be using this for all sorts of different things that just a webcam won't be any good at. So I benefit in that way. So that's why it was worth it for me. If you enjoyed the video, if this was helpful, entertaining, drop it a like. Make sure you hit subscribe down below, turn on notifications so you don't miss a future upload. And don't worry, we'll get back to the controller reviews. I know this is way out of our normal kind of niche of content, but don't worry about that. There won't be too much of this coming up. But I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.